The Metro on WDET in Detroit. I'm Kerry Jr. II. Many of the systems designed to keep us safe sometimes harm the most vulnerable among us, especially those who face financial hardship. During this hour, we'll unpack some of the unintended consequences of court policies and public safety. We will hear how Detroit's, quote, People's Court wants to stop punishing people for being poor, and we will revisit how curfew fines implemented by the city might do more harm than good. But to the courts. Detroit's 36th District Court calls itself the People's Court. Chief Judge William McConico sees that as a mission statement. He says living up to that mission means offering things like an amnesty program. Under the program, the court is waiving all late fees, penalties, and warrant costs for anyone who pays their original fines through April 2nd. The court handles hundreds of thousands of cases a year: traffic tickets, misdemeanors, evictions, felony arraignments. McConico says this amnesty program is meant to stop punishing people for being poor. Chief Judge William McConico joined Robyn Vincent to make his case.
Give us a sense of scale. How much total outstanding court debt are we talking about across the system, and how many people are currently carrying it?
Well, I'll say this. In the first week of the amnesty program, the court brought in $403,000. So there's a tremendous amount of debt that is uncollected right now. We have a lot of citizens who they do the first part by coming to court. Either they're found guilty or responsible, or they take a plea. The second part is to pay your court fine. And when they don't, late fines are attached. Warrant fees are attached eventually, and it just becomes an ongoing vicious cycle. The first day, you couldn't even come into the court. There were so many people down there. There's 3 ways to pay. So you can come to the court, which a lot of people like to come. They like to speak to a cashier. They like to get the paperwork saying they've paid. They have that receipt. They have their clearance saying their license is reinstatement. You can come to a cash register. We have a kiosk outside, or any DivDat kiosk that's throughout the city. You can pay it right there. You'll have your receipt and your paperwork, or you can come to the 36th District Court website and you can take care of it that way. But the one thing I want to stress to all of your listeners, because there are a lot of scams that are out here, and even a new one came out this Sunday. We don't have any system where you're going to scan any codes. Either you come down to the court, 36th District Court website, or DivDat kiosk.
So I'm right to ignore all those text messages that I've been getting from the alleged 36th District Court with a link to click on. I've been getting some text messages that I have to say are like high level pro. If they're giving me a moment of pause, I know that they are for a lot of other folks.
So, I mean, just on Sunday, the chair of the Wayne County Commissioner, Alicia Bell, she sent me, she says, is this real? I said, absolutely not. We've had the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. She's getting these text messages, and every time she gets them, she sends them to me. We put something on our website and our social media to say these are scams, but they're coming. They're coming every week right now. And so the court's website, come down to the court, or DivDat kiosk. There's no QR codes. We don't have any judges named Jonathan Smith. It's like, how generic can you be? Judge John Smith is not sending you anything. We don't have toll roads also.
That's right.
In Michigan or Detroit. So stay away from the scams.
I want to go back to the idea of how unpaid fines can cascade into suspended licenses, into missed work, into more legal trouble.
A simple case where a person forgot to renew their tags. Okay, they skip their mind. They get pulled over by the Detroit police. They come down. They're found to be responsible for driving with expired tags. Fines $175. They ask for some time to pay, but they never pay it. Next thing, a $50 late fine is added to it. Next thing, after a certain amount of time, a warrant fee is added to it, and then their license is suspended. They are lawful drivers, good driving record, but their license is suspended just because they didn't renew their tags and they didn't pay the fine. Then they're applying for a new job. and then they do the background check, and you have a warrant for your arrest right now. We get people like that all the time, and they're trying to resolve it really quickly, but they can't work. And in the economy that we have right now, with affordability issues, the last thing that we want to have a person not be able to get a job is because you owe money on a ticket or you're applying for housing. They're running background checks when people are trying to get apartments. You want a new place for you and your family, but you're denied because of a traffic warrant. And we want to take away that barrier. Come on down, pay the original fine. This could be a ticket that was 8 years ago. What you owed 8 years ago is what you'll owe now, and all the other things that were added to it, they're going to be taken away, and you're going to walk away with that license reinstated.
Judge McConico, Chief Judge, I hear you saying, come on down. It's like you're trying to make this the people's court.
Absolutely. and I want you to, and the other thing that we had, and you had to get on social media about this, you had some people saying, this is a trick. They want you guys to come down so they'll arrest you for this. And it's like, no, that was Washington, D.C. in the 90s where they offered like TVs, you come down and they were arresting them. No, you're not going before a judge. You're going to a cashier, or you're just going to the kiosk.
I want to quickly talk a little bit about the system behind court fees and fines, because this is the third time the court has run an amnesty program. It did the same in 2020 and 2024. If the court keeps having to offer these, does that tell us something about whether the underlying fine and fee structure is working? In other words, at what point does the need for repeated amnesty suggest the system itself is a problem?
Well, there's a couple of schools of thought. Well, I'll just tackle two. One is that we're having social economic issues which lead to poverty, and when people don't have money to pay their fines and costs. And so if you don't have money to pay your fines and costs, the best thing is to tell the judge when you take your offer that I don't have the money. And we have programs for that. We have programs where you can do community service in lieu of fines and costs. But if you don't come back, or if you don't show up at all, you can't take advantage of that. We also have some actors that are just irresponsible, and they're making a business decision not to pay their fines and costs. For those people, there's nothing that you can do except try to get them to pay. But for those who do not have the money, we have payment plans that you can get on, and we have community service that can be offered. And what we don't want to have is to have finances or your social economic condition to be a reason that your license is suspended. And the only way you have those issues is if you just don't show up at court. If you just don't come and you have a warrant that's issued because you don't come, or you take a plea and, you say I can pay in 2 weeks and you don't come back, then we can't help you. And then you are waiting to something like an amnesty program. The first amnesty program was really necessary and remarkable because we were in the middle of COVID. And so some people couldn't pay their fines because we weren't open, and then things automatically happened. And so we said we don't want anyone to have extra fees and costs because the court was closed when they had their time. And that was a rounding success. The last amnesty we had, again, was very successful, but and this is the reason why you don't do an amnesty program every year. We want people to take care of their fines and costs when they can, or ask for help, ask for relief, or we don't have to get to this. And that's part of the reason why I go to community meetings, I go to block club meetings, I go to city council members' meetings to say, we have programs. We have things that you can do. You can do community service at a nonprofit. We're not having you cleaning up on the freeway or anything of that nature. We have a list of approved nonprofits, or you could even offer up a nonprofit.
Chief Judge, you're talking about a level of engagement that you're involved in when it comes to the community and within neighborhoods that might surprise some people. I think folks might say, this is the person presiding over the largest court in the state of Michigan, and Chief Judge is talking to us about sitting in on block club meetings, essentially. Is that a unique thing?
It's very unique. And so once I became Chief Judge in 2020, I'm a former state representative. And so when I was in the legislature, this is part of what you do. You go to community meetings, you go to block clubs, you sit in people's backyards, you talk to them about what's happening in Lansing. I created a position with one of my administrative assistants that person is a community relations specialist. 2 weeks ago, I took 3 judges to 3 community meetings so that they could hear from the citizens. We have to unzip those robes and get out of 421 Madison and go here. These are what people are experiencing. This is what they're dealing with landlords. This is what they're dealing with the police. This is what they're just dealing with in their lives. But also to let them know what programs that we have, because we have so many resources and so many things dealing with our specialty court, dealing with our mental health issues, dealing with special programs for veterans. We've been doing restorative clinics in Southwest Detroit. We're taking judges to recreation centers, and we're doing the court business in the community to take away all these barriers. And that's why we're taking the court to the people, and we do it every week.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. My guest is Chief Judge William McConico of Detroit's 36th District Court, the largest district court in Michigan. We're talking about the court's amnesty program, which waives late fees and penalties on outstanding court debt through April 2nd. We're also talking the bigger forces shaping justice in Detroit right now. Chief Judge, when you talk about all of these things and you talk about the amnesty program, what this does is it fits into a bigger philosophy of yours that is focused, I think, on the ill effects of systemic racism and the very broad and cascading effects of poverty, including things like crime. This all brings me back to 2022. That was when your court reached a landmark agreement with the ACLU to essentially end cash bail for most cases. And you've pointed out that violent crime in Detroit has dropped significantly since then. Of course, critics, including the Wayne County prosecutor, have said this is a bridge too far. Now I'm wondering, Chief Judge, 4 years in, what does the data actually show? Are people showing up to court, and is the public safer?
Well, and I'm glad you asked that question. When Wayne County prosecutor, a good friend of mine, Kim Worthy, made that statement, there wasn't the data at that point. We have seen every segment of crime has gone down in the city of Detroit. We have the lowest carjacking in the city of Detroit since the term carjacking was coined. The homicide rate is the lowest since the 1960s. Theft crimes, property crimes, criminal sexual assaults. Every category is down, and it has coincided with bail reform. Locking people up for traffic tickets doesn't make anyone safe. What it does is makes people lose their jobs, lose housing. We had citizens that had missed court dates dealing with custody issues because they are in custody because they can't pay a $500 bond on a driving while license suspended ticket. It did nothing to protect the community. And what you're seeing now is when people have jobs, when people work, when people can be active in their kids' schooling, crime goes down. When we can make sure people have resources, when we can have community relations with our police department, where if someone is seeing something in their community, they feel comfortable speaking with the police. And also knowing that we have judges that are going to be fair and impartial at all sides. But we're not here to throw the book at people. We're here to make sure that we have a safe community, but we have a fair system. And every year that we've had bail reform, we have seen crime drop, and we have not seen the appearance rate of people go down because they're not being locked up and held while they're waiting on their cases.
You realize that the things that you're saying, for someone who is deep in the system to be saying them, this at one time would sound radical. Do you have hope? Are you hearing these conversations being had more in systemic settings and more in mainstream settings than you have before?
Yeah, and that's why I continue to engage with law enforcement and a lot of sheriffs across the state. This is something that they feared is bail and bond, bail reform. But to continue to talk with them, continue to show data. What you think and what the numbers are just different. And when we have a communication and we talk, I live in the city of Detroit. I've lived in the city of Detroit my entire life, except when I was in college and law school. My family's in the city of Detroit. I want the city to be safe. I'm not trying, this is not theoretical, but what I also want is a fair system. Part of the reason why I got into politics was dealing with criminal justice reform. And what I always tell people is that in my first term in the legislature, I passed a bill that ended a practice of lifetime probation and mandatory minimums when it came to drug cases. And that the fact that John Engler, one of the most conservative Republican governors in the history of this country, a Republican legislature in the House and the Senate, would pass criminal justice reform in 2002, and it was signed into law Christmas Day of 2002. If we can do that back then, we can definitely look 24 years later and see that we have not, that there's a continued need for criminal justice reform, and the tough on crime mantra of the 80s and the 70s did nothing but incarcerate people and break up families and destroy communities, and that we can learn from the past and be smarter going forward.
Two things you've just said here that I want to pull apart very quickly. So you're talking about a conservative state house, a conservative in the governor's mansion, one of the most conservative that we can think of in recent memory, passing criminal justice reform. Can you see that happening right now in Michigan?
I can. And the thing that, part of what drove it back then was, I always say, you never waste a good crisis. So we were starting to, the economy was starting to tank, and the amount of money we were spending on corrections and incarcerating people who were nonviolent offenders made people start coming to the table to think. There's a lot of polarization in Lansing right now. They can't agree, that today is Wednesday.
That's right. That's why I asked the question.
So what we have to work on is we have to engage people, and we have to take the emotion out of criminal justice. The easiest thing is to put someone in jail or in prison and walk away, but it takes really thoughtful discussions, trusting on each side to do this. Honestly, I don't have a lot of. This is an election year. They're at each other even more in Lansing. I don't have any. I'm not encouraged that this year that anything can happen, but I do believe that we have going forward, that we have the groundwork and we have the data to show that criminal justice reform does not make a community unsafe. And I have faith going forward that we can. Not a lot of faith for 2026, but just moving forward that we can.
Okay, you're holding out faith for the coming years,
Yes.
maybe not this one. I want to go back to bail reform quickly to just return to one point, and that is what you're saying essentially about the bail reform that has happened in your court is you directly connect that with lowered crime in the city of Detroit. What do you say to the folks who would point to the police, who would point to many other organizations and entities first before they would look at the courts?
I would say it's not what I would say. I would start them out by saying this. When we went into bail reform, you said you were against it because you said crime will go up. So you have to take that argument away because crime has not gone up. That's the one thing we can all agree on is since we have introduced bail reform, crime has not gone up. The theory was if people are not in jail, that they're more apt to commit crime. And so we've taken that away. Absolutely, there's been so many other things, but in conjunction with bail reform, when we have community organizations, we have ministers that are going out every day, engaging in the community.
Community violence intervention programs.
Absolutely. You cannot take away the impact that it's had. We've had a working work group with the mayor of the city of Detroit, the county executive, the county prosecutors, sheriffs, Michigan Department of Correction, chief judge of 36th District Court, chief judge of the Third Circuit, meeting once a month to talk about what are the issues that we can do in our own realm to bring down crime. it has worked. But what I'm going to always say is that one of the biggest part and one of the things that was the most controversial was bail reform. And you cannot say that bail reform makes anyone unsafe when we've had a record drop in crime every single year since we've introduced bail reform.
For someone who's brand new to the term, in the most simplest way possible, Chief Judge, explain why you think this is having an effect on lowering crime.
In order to have a cash bail in the city of Detroit, and this you have to, and people have cash bails. I want to say that I have a docket. It's called a bond redetermination docket that I do every day, and these are people that at their arraignment they received unaffordable bonds, and they come back before me, and the defense will argue why they deserve to have a lower bond. The two factors that are taken into account is whether the defendant is a danger to a complaining witness or a danger to the community and or a flight risk. If a person is a flight risk, they don't come to court. They they have a lot of money stashed and they have passports, they have properties out. They may be a flight risk. Or if someone has committed a violent crime that is such that the victim of the domestic violence case, the victim of whatever crime, or just the community as a whole may be in danger, it is appropriate for there to be a cash bond in that system. So what we're doing is we're making individual decisions right now so that those who need to be incarcerated while their case is going on, those people are incarcerated. And then a person who has a low-level offense or a person that we can use a lesser type of an offense where that person could work, they could be on a tether, and they could still provide for their family. They can still have other options instead of committing crimes. That has been a direct correlation to why we are seeing the rapid rate. And you've seen other communities. Once Illinois passed their bail reform statewide, the crime rate is still much too high in Chicago, but it has gone down each year there. And so you're seeing other states, they are doing it, and the one thing you're seeing is a precipitous drop in crimes.
When we come back, Chief Judge William McConico of Detroit's 36th District Court tells us what he knows about one of his own judges who has been federally indicted. And we discuss the impacts of a funding crisis closing in on the court's biggest reforms. Plus, the question at the center of it all: can Detroiters trust this system? We'll be right back on the Metro. You're listening to The Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Kerry Jr. II. We're back with Chief Judge McConico of the 36th District Court. Before the break, we discussed Judge McConico's amnesty program, bail reform, and how the court is reckoning with fines that can entrap people in the criminal justice system. Now, what threatens that work, from the inside and the outside? Here's Robyn, Vincent.
I want to shift to something harder.
Okay.
Because I'd be remiss not to ask about it. Judge Andrea Bradley Baskin was your court's general counsel before she was elected to the bench. Mm-hmm. She's now federally indicted for allegedly embezzling millions from incapacitated people in the probate system, and prosecutors have signaled more charges are coming. As chief judge, what did you know about the FBI investigation before that indictment came down, and when did you know it?
Okay. What I knew is that there was an FBI investigation because they came to the court to get Judge Bradley Baskin's employment records when she was general counsel, and that is what I knew. The allegations against Judge Bradley Baskin predate her being our general counsel or judge. They are as I say, in any case, she has a presumption of innocence. She's entitled to everything that any other defendant is in our legal system. But yes, this is a very tough situation for the court, and this is a person who was our general counsel and was a phenomenal lawyer for the court, and the citizens, over 100,000 voters, voted her onto the bench in 2024.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I bring it up, because it is a tough time for the court, because the court's credibility is central to programs like amnesty and bail reform. And you're asking Detroiters to trust this institution, to walk in, to pay their fines, to engage with the system. I know, based not only on the work that you've done, but what we've been discussing today, how much you've been trying to build that trust. And so how do you make that case when one of your judges is accused of stealing from the most vulnerable people the courts are supposed to protect?
What I'll say is this. I would tell a person that just as if they had a family member who was accused of a crime, that the Judge Bradley Baskin is entitled to that presumption of innocence. But I would also say to that individual that when these charges, when she was indicted, that I did go to the state court administrator's office to have her suspended immediately, and that I didn't think it would be appropriate for her to hear cases while this was pending. And that is a testament that the court takes these things just for appearance sake, that we take that seriously, and that we want citizens to know that when you come before any judge at our court, that integrity is the first thing at the forefront of all of our decisions, and that you're not going to have to worry about that. And again, we wish nothing but the best for Judge Bradley Baskin. We want all of this to be a misunderstanding, a mistake, and we would hope that she can come back. But if not, the system is what the system is, and that we trust the system, whether it is a family member, it is a friend, it's a colleague. We trust the jury system. We trust our criminal justice system, and that's what's that. But the 29 judges at the 36th District Court are going, and our over 300 employees are going to handle all of your matters with integrity. We're going to do it with a smile on our face. We're going to be very welcoming. And you are correct. 36th District Court is the people's court. I always say when I'm in the community and I have people raise their hands, how many times have you gone and had a case in front of the Michigan Supreme Court? No hands go up. And how many times have you been in front of the Michigan Court of Appeals? How many times have you had to deal with 36th District Court? Everyone's hand goes up. And so that's why it's important that we do demystify our court, that we make sure people know that this is their court, and that they're going to have a fair shake at our court. And there's not going to be any integrity issues whatsoever at 36th District Court.
Chief Judge, what you're saying is that you've built a court that runs on reform, and that you're invested in making sure it continues to move forward, continues to have momentum. But reform runs on money.
Yes.
And right now, federal grants are frozen, and there is American Rescue Plan dollars that are running out. Your drug courts, mental health courts, and other specialty programs were funded by federal grants that you've said the court can no longer reapply for under the current administration's funding freeze. What happens to people who are currently in those programs if that money doesn't come back? And is there a backup plan?
Well, yes. And it's very interesting. I was in front of the Detroit City Council this past Monday for our budget hearing, and I was letting them know that I don't come to them and ask for resources that we don't need. And for the past few years, we haven't asked for any money for our specialty court because we were able to get the federal funding as well as state grants. But I have some good news. And there's actually, I sent Council President Tate a text yesterday. Some of the grants that were frozen and that were not available, literally yesterday, they put them back out. And so we're going to be able to apply. They're due at the end of April and some in May. So there are some resources that we might be able to recoup. We are still going to the city of Detroit to ask for the money so that the programs run. If we're able to get the federal grant dollars back, we will obviously not need the money from the city. But I said, well, maybe the president or some of his staff are watching local access TV in Detroit, because the next day, legitimately, we got this email and I got a call and they were like, 3 of our grants, they just put them back out. that we can apply for. And I just said, well, God is good, and so let's try to get that money. But if not, we are looking to the city of Detroit to fund those programs. One thing I do know from this city council, as well as the mayor, because obviously she was the former president of the city council, they respect what we do at specialty court. They know the work that we do for our veterans, that we have one of the strongest mental health courts in the United States, and what we do for our drug court programs, that this can't fall by the wayside. There can't be a pause. There can't be a lessening in services because there's not a lessening in need. The need is there, and we're gonna provide that need. So I believe we're either going to get the money from the city of Detroit or we're going to get it from the federal government. But I just legitimately, I could not believe the next day that some of these grants, just the emails came out and said apply, and we were just like literally running around the office like, I can't believe this happened the very next day after going in front of council. So,
Chief Judge, this is sounds like Kismet, but more than that. I'm wondering about one other program that is funded or was being funded by American Rescue Plan dollars. Detroit's right to counsel. That has transformed what happens in your eviction courtrooms.
Yes.
Tenant representation. I mean, and I'm speaking as a tenant, so I love to see this. Tenant representation went from 4% to 77%. And the number of court-ordered removals, that means writs of eviction, where someone is actually put out of their home, dropped nearly in half.
yes.
But the federal funding from the American Rescue Plan expires soon. Are you concerned that the progress made in your courtrooms is about to be reversed, or is this something that you see funding streams for through the city, as you've talked about, or even federally?
Well, I'm very concerned. I remember in 2019, then Chief Justice Bridget McCormick did a town hall meeting, and one of the things in the city of Detroit, and I took one of my paralegal classes from Wayne County Community College to the town hall, and it talked about the lack of representation in civil and landlord-tenant cases, and it compared just Detroit to similar situated cities: Cleveland, Newark, the Bronx, Baltimore. And it was just appalling how few people were represented here and how high our eviction rate was. One of the things that was, and I hate to use the term a benefit from COVID because it was so devastating to the world, and there was loss of lives and all those things. But one thing that during that time period, the rights of tenants, the thought of shelter. We did a moratorium in the city of Detroit on evictions. Then it was ultimately followed up. The governor did a statewide, and then the president did a nationwide eviction. Like, how do you tell citizens to shelter in place when they have no shelter, or when we are actively putting people out? So that caused a lot of discussions to happen, and I will give. Then President, the City Council, Mary Sheffield, we had a lot of meetings about what can we do in this area of right to counsel. And the City Council put their money and their actions behind it. There was a cobbling of city funds as well as, the ARPA money that was there from the federal government.
American Rescue Plan.
I'm sorry, yes. And I hate when people use acronyms. I am very concerned about funding. And that Right to Counsel had a meeting 2 weeks ago, and we were not on the program, but I went and I had 4 judges and my general counsel go, just because we are supportive however they can get the funding, because we can't go back. We can't go from having over 70% of the tenants have representation to 50, to 40, to 30, because, it's one thing to handle a traffic ticket where there's a city attorney on the other side and you argue that, yes, I had my seatbelt on it. But landlord-tenant cases, those, when I became a judge, those were the only cases that I was nervous to do because I didn't know landlord-tenant law. I didn't practice it. It's very nuanced. And if I was uncomfortable in a landlord-tenant case, how is just a lay person? And so it is critical. And anywhere I go, I have nothing to do with the funding, but I always tell people who have something to do with funding, whether it's a philanthropic organization, whether it's the city of Detroit, whether it's our federal legislators, this is a program that's working, and it works on all sides. So a landlord, it's better for their lawyer to talk to another lawyer so they can get some things done. Maybe they can get their money faster. Maybe they could put them in a smaller apartment, a more affordable one. But things happen when lawyers are talking together, and we have a fair system. And so I am concerned about it. Anytime I get a chance to talk about it, please fund this operation, because we cannot go back. Because if we go back, I believe we'll have more cases. Our cases have dropped by a third since 2019. Wow. I mean, and so when you have 10,000 less residents even facing a case, and we're not talking about the outcome, but just even being in the court, just even being served, I couldn't imagine. I lived in one house, one small house my entire life. I couldn't imagine being evicted from my house as a kid. I can't imagine having to change school districts. I can't imagine the trauma that would be on my parents. And so if we can stop people even being at that stage, and Right to Counsel helps. We're looking to get into starting some diversion programs at the court, where if it's a very small amount of money, we don't even need to get into it in front of a judge. Let's start working these things out. So I really appreciate that question, because Right to Counsel was critical. And it's not just being on one side. It helps the system as a whole. It helps the city as a whole to bring fairness to that landlord-tenant docket.
Chief Judge, we've talked about right to counsel and bail reform and amnesty programs, a federal funding crisis, a corruption scandal.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. I realize there's a statewide proposal to fundamentally restructure how Michigan courts are funded. When you think about all of these things, what is your North Star?
And this is very funny. I spoke with someone in the state court administrator's office yesterday, and I always say that I'm unique, and I recognize that I have a unique situation in the other courts. I have a wonderful legislative body to work with, and so I have a legislative body that respects the work that another branch of government is
You're saying the
performing.
local legislative
Yes.
body, meaning Detroit City Council.
Yeah. There are other courts that they have to fight to hire an administrative assistant. You have legislative bodies that micromanage everything in a court. You have some circuit courts that they don't get along with their county commission, who are their funding sources. And so whenever I can, I'll say I appreciate, and I said at the council meeting, I've been in front of 3 council presidents, and Brenda Jones, Mary Sheffield, and now Council President Tate, and we are working well together, because we have one goal, and that's to serve our residents in the city of Detroit. And so, and I would hope that we could get some help coming out of D.C., because, we're spending $1 billion a day in Iran. $1 billion a day could really help people out in the city of Detroit and other areas of Michigan and throughout this country. And if we could, kind of focus some of the things on other things, I think we would, be in a different place. And so we're going to try to work with the federal government, and I have a whole team that's working on writing for these grants, because there's money in D.C., obviously, because they're able to spend $1 billion a day right now, so it's there. And so we want the people that really need it to get the resources down here.
Chief Judge William McConico speaking with Robyn Vincent. McConico presides over Detroit's 36th District Court, a court testing whether reform and accountability can happen at the same time. The court's amnesty program runs through April 2nd. If you have outstanding court fines, all late fees, penalties, and warrant costs are waived when you pay the original amount. Ever want to go back and listen to a conversation you heard on the Metro, or share it with a friend? Every one of our conversations we have on this show is available on the Metro's podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Find us, follow, and subscribe to hear more of these great conversations. All right, coming up. Last summer, Detroit police ramped up curfew fines in response to a string of shootings involving teens. Do stiffer fines lead to less youth violence? We hear from a researcher next. Stay right there.